Days like this, I want to drive away. Don't know where I'm going, but I can't stay. I lose what I have left of you, but I hope that I'll find me. California dreaming between these sheets, chasing down the sunsets, that's where I'll be. Cruise control at 80 miles, only one hand on the wheel. Sunlight, the open road, where I'm going, I don't know. No destinations, no obligations, leaving behind the problems you gave me. A backpack in the backseat is all I need. On Highway 16, 2, 3, 4. Feels like these four walls are closing in, like I'm suffocating in my own skin. I know it's time to make a change, oh, it's time to begin. Harmonizing to the radio, bass crank loud, oh, my stereo won't blow. I'm driving fast, the storm will pass, I can finally let go. Sunlight, the open road, where I'm going, I don't know. No destinations, no obligations, leaving behind the problems you gave me. A backpack in the backseat is all I need. On Highway 16, Vancouver, Seattle, San Diego, Chicago, Las Vegas, or I'll keep going. Vancouver, Seattle, San Diego, Chicago, Las Vegas, so I don't know. As long as I have the wind in my hair, the will to go and the gas to get there. Sunlight, the open road, where I'm going, I don't know. No destinations, no obligations, leaving behind the problems you gave me. A backpack in the backseat is all I need. On Highway 16, on Highway 16, on Highway 16.
Hello, I'm Jason Memel, the Artistic Director of Sage Theatre and the Ignite Festival of Emerging Artists. The land where the festival is organized and where many of the festival artists reside is called Mohkinstsis and is in the Treaty 7 territory, including the traditional territory of the Niitsitapi, or Blackfoot, Nakota, or Stoney, and Tsuut'ina nations, as well as Métis Nation Region 3. We are grateful to tell stories here. We also acknowledge the ongoing oppressive colonial history of Canada. We must listen to the stories now coming to light, engage with the pain we find there, and demand action from our elected officials to break the cycle. To make a festival of this size work takes a lot of support. If you're interested in getting involved, we'd love to talk to you about volunteering or donating to Sage Theatre. You can be part of the family that helps bring stories to life and supports over 100 emerging artists every year. We consider our supporters to be part of our family. There's our season sponsors, YYC Tech, as well as support from the RBC Emerging Artists Project and the Harry and Martha Cohen Foundation. We couldn't do it without them. We also want to acknowledge the support of our public funders, Canadian Heritage and the Alberta Foundation for the Arts. Thank you so much for being with us as we present the 17th Annual Ignite Festival of Emerging Artists and the Summer of Ignite. Enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to Ignite 2021, Ignite of the Summer. I'm Maisie Denny, and I'll be your host for tonight. Tonight we will have, my pronouns are she, her. Today we'll have two different readings of the play Mythical Creatures, written by Tia Christopherson and directed by Lizzie Rahel. This is an initiative we like to call Scene Switch, where the playwright and director get to test out different versions of one scene in Mythical Creatures. After the main festival dates, Mythical Creatures will then be developed into a full-length podcast, which will be released to the public later this summer. You can find that at sagetheater.com. Later in the evening, we will be interviewing both Tia Christopherson, the playwright of Mythical Creatures, as well as the curator of Ignite's dance program, Sarah Kurtz. So make sure to stay tuned in. Our first segment today will be part A of Mythical Creatures. This tale takes place in the medieval period and explores how queerness, gender, and sexuality can be represented in that time. Content warning: this play contains explicit language, explicit discussions of sex and sexual activities, and religious references. If you're not able to tune into this content today, please return in about 10 minutes. Enjoy the show.
Welcome. Oh, your company pleases me so. Donning the holy garments this evening, I see. You are the first guest to arrive, but the others shan't be long. Can I offer you any libations, Holden?
Father Holden.
Yes, of course. Father.
A man of the cloth does not partake in such merriment. Thank you for the offer, nonetheless.
Committing steadfastly to the act, are we?
Rest assured, this is no act. I will have a brick and mortar parish of my own one day soon, and my flock will finally have a place to stretch their wings.
Who exactly are the members of your flock?
We are growing in numbers every day, dear Allison.
Allison, what a vision you are. And do my eyes deceive me, or is that a priest?
Sometimes Holden is a priest.
Sometimes.
Other times I go by the name of Elena. When called upon the Lord on high, I'm Father Holden.
Holden him.
Him? Like the song of worship.
Exactly.
Well, seems an unconventional dinner guest, but at least I can be certain he won't try to get fresh with me.
Pleased to make your acquaintance.
The name's Hildegard. Allison, fetch me a drinking horn, would you?
I have no horns, only cups.
Oh, that'll have to do.
Do you happen to be seeking a flock?
Dear Hildegard is not much of a churchgoer type.
Greetings, Allison. Oh, hello, you must be Holden him. Hildegard, how do you do? Has my sweet Cecily not yet arrived?
No, this is our entire company.
Oh dear.
Here we go.
Why does she delay so long in a far-off land?
She cannot be too far, can she?
Oh, does she want me to die?
Beatrice, your theatrics enliven even the dullest of gatherings.
I sigh for her at every hour, no, every moment. And my hunger for her is like that of a baby bird. Can you not understand?
Aw, young love.
Perhaps we can distract your mind while we anticipate her arrival.
Oh, no one could possibly console me with a word. Oh, I'm oppressed. by such terrible pain. I pray to God that bitter death not come to me.
Speaking of prayer,
I lament without end until once more I might enjoy the sweetness of her company.
Save your breath, Father.
I hear someone approaching. Might it be Marjorie or Cecily arriving?
Oh, my heart!
Beatrice! Just as a turtle dove, after it has lost his mate, remains forever sitting on a barren twig, there was no pleasure for me without you.
What should I compare to your love? It is sweeter than honey and honeycomb, and compared to it, the luster of gold and silver becomes worthless.
In you are all sweetness and value.
You are sweeter than milk and honey.
You are singled out from among thousands.
I love you more than all others.
You are the sweet refreshment of my soul.
Everything which was pleasant with you is wearisome and dreary without you.
We try not to take it personally.
so they always speak like this?
That if I could pay my life for you, I would not hesitate.
You are the only woman I have chosen after my heart.
I beg your pardon, but I must ask. Have you ever made a device modeled after a male member in the size of your preference and bound it to your private parts and done fornication with other women? If you have, you should do penance for 3 years on appointed fast days.
Who are you?
Oh, pay him no mind, my beloved.
I am a priest.
Sometimes.
Allow me to lead us in prayer before the commencement of our feasting.
There will be no commencing of anything until old Marge gets here.
We may be waiting a long while. We know how dearly Marjorie holds her long walks.
You daring to speak ill of those who embark upon pilgrimage?
Oh, now, Father Holden, let us talk of other matters while we await Marjorie's arrival.
Let me tell you the tale of the priest who...
Oh, no, not this one. It does not contain enough romance for my liking.
What is the story?
A priest screws a maiden, a peasant's wife.
Who is curiously silent?
Not every maiden can be as outspoken as those in our presence this evening.
Marriage is but a muzzle on a woman.
One of the many reasons I will never take a husband.
If it is husbands we're speaking of, 5 times I have been married. Or 5 times I have been wedded. All worthy men in their own degree, mind you. Welcome the 6th whenever he should arrive, I say.
Surely you must be aware that God recognizes but one marriage.
I know truly that God commanded us to increase and multiply. Have faith, Father. I understand the good book perfectly well.
Dare I say, your understanding of God's word compares not to mine.
I understand not a lick, yet I know that multiple marriage is frowned upon.
Not when my husband is gone from the world. God's decree is that as a widow, I am free to wed whom I wish. Better to wed than to burn, as they say. Besides, why else would God have fitted us with these instruments, if not to use them?
The opinion of our pious Marjorie would differ sharply, I'm sure.
I don't know if the same can be said for her husband.
Oh, she claims to have been visited by God in a dream, instructing her to a life of chastity.
After birthing 14 children.
That seems a very noble choice. I do not see a reason why you ladies couldn't...
By the power of my constellation, I could not withhold my chamber of Venus from a good fellow.
I sense a sermon coming on.
I do not intend to lecture you. We men of God are bound to share our knowledge, and we have answers for everything. In fact, there are even orders of penance for a woman who has tasted her husband's semen in order to greater inflame his love for her. There are even instructions for women who catch a live fish and insert it into their vagina, keeping it in there until it dies, then serving the fish to their husbands to eat, all to make their husbands love them more.
Oh, really? What else will men accuse us women of doing next? They say we are endangering our chastity if we make ourselves look nice and wear expensive clothing. They say that as a worm harms a tree, so does a wife destroy her husband. Truly, what possesses them to grouch and groan as they do? Is it over this alone?
Oh, do not act shy now, Allison. You've been a most entertaining hostess.
Indeed. Allow me to show you my gratitude with some entertainment of my own. A mind teaser.
Oh, wonderful idea, darling.
I'm not so good at these.
Listen then.
A curious thing hangs by a man's thigh, under the lap of its lord. In its front it is pierced, it is stiff and hard, it has a good position. When the man lifts his own garment above his knee, he intends to greet with the head of his hanging object that familiar hole which is the same length, and which he has often filled before.
Good heavens.
I reckon I know what the answer is.
A key!
Oh!
Oh, how delightful, Cecily. Have you any more?
Yes, I tell you, I have heard of something that grows in a corner, swelling and standing up, lifting up its covering. Upon that boneless thing, a proud-minded woman gripped with her hand, and with her garment, a lord's daughter covered the swollen thing. It is dough!
Who is responsible for these lecherous riddles? He who amuses himself with libidinous imagination shall do penance until the imagination is overcome.
We'll have to track him down another night, Father.
Beatrice, Holden ought to feast his ears on your little ditty. You know, the one about the rooster.
If you insist. I have a noble cock who crows for me at daybreak.
No, I can take no more of this.
See you in church, Father.
I love it. Absolutely fantastic. And now it's time for the scene switch. We will play another version of Mythical Creatures, but this time the cast, playwright, and directors have worked together to create a different version of the performance you just saw. Again, this contains explicit language and explicit discussions of sex and sexual activity. If you're not able to tune into this, please return in about 10 minutes. Enjoy.
Welcome. Your company pleases me so. Donning the holy garments this evening, I see. You are the first guest to arrive, but the others shan't be long. Can I offer you some libations, Holden?
Father Holden,
Oh, yes, of course. Father!
a man of the cloth does not partake in such merriment. Thank you for the offer, nonetheless.
Committing steadfastly to the act, are we?
Rest assured, this is no act. I will have a brick and mortar parish of my own one day soon. Flock will finally have a place to stretch their wings.
Who exactly are the members of your flock?
We are growing in number every day, dear Allison.
Allison, what a vision you are. And do my eyes deceive me, or is that a priest?
Sometimes Holden is a priest.
Sometimes.
Other times I go by the name of Elena. When called upon the Lord on high, I'm Father Holden.
Holden him?
Oh, him? Like the song of worship?
Exactly.
Well, seems an unconventional dinner guest. But at least I can be certain he won't try to get fresh with me. Ha!
Pleased to make your acquaintance.
Oh, the name's Hildegard. Allison, fetch me a drinking horn, would you?
I don't have horns, only cups.
Oh, that will have to do.
Do you happen to be seeking a flock?
Dear Hildegard is not much of a churchgoer type.
Greetings, Allison. Hello, you must be holding him. Hildegard, how do you do? Has my sweet Cecily not yet arrived?
No, this is our entire company.
Oh dear.
Here we go.
Why does she delay so long in a far-off land?
She cannot be too far, can she?
Oh, does she want me to die?
Oh, Beatrice, your theatrics enliven even the dullest of gatherings.
I sigh for her at every hour. No, every moment. My hunger for her is like that of a baby bird. Can you not understand?
Oh, young love.
Perhaps we can distract your mind while we anticipate her arrival?
No one could possibly console me with a word. I'm oppressed by such terrible pain. I pray to God that bitter death not come to me.
Speaking of prayer,
I lament without end until once more I may enjoy the sweetness of her company.
Save your breath, Father.
I hear someone approaching. Might it be Marjorie or Cecily arriving?
Oh, my heart!
Yes, Beatrice! Just as a turtle dove after it has lost its mate remains forever sitting on a barren twig, there was no pleasure for me without you.
What should I compare to your love? It is sweeter than honey and honeycomb, and compared to it the luster of gold and silver becomes worthless.
In you are all sweetness and value.
Oh, you are sweeter than milk and honey.
You are singled out from among thousands.
I love you more than all others.
You are the sweet refreshment of my soul.
Everything which was pleasant with you is wearisome and dreary without you.
We try not to take it personally.
do they always speak this way?
That if I could pay my life for you, I would not hesitate.
You are the only woman I have chosen after my heart.
I beg your pardon, but I must ask. Have you ever made a device modeled after a male member in the size of your preference and bound it to your private parts and done fornication with other women? If you have, you should do penance for 3 years on appointed fast days.
Who are you?
Pay him no mind, my beloved.
I am a priest.
Sometimes.
Allow me to lead us in prayer before the commencement of our feasting.
Oh, there will be no commencing of anything until old Marge gets here.
We may be waiting a long while. We all know how dearly Marjorie holds her long walks.
You daring to speak ill of those who embark upon pilgrimage?
Oh, now, Father Holden, let us talk of other matters while we await Marjorie's arrival.
Let me tell you the one about the priest who...
Oh no, not this one. It does not contain enough romance for my liking.
What is the story?
A priest screws a maiden, a pastor's
Who
wife.
is curiously silent?
Well, not every maiden can be so outspoken as those in our presence this evening.
Marriage is but a muzzle on a woman.
One of the many reasons I will never take a husband.
If it is husbands we're speaking of, 5 times I have been wedded. All worthy men in their own degree, mind you. Welcome the 6th whenever he should arrive, is what I say.
Surely you must be aware that God recognizes but one marriage.
I know truly that God commanded us to increase and multiply. Have faith, Father. I understand the good book perfectly well.
Dare I say your understanding of God's word compares not to mine.
I understand not a lick. Oh, yet I know multiple marriages is frowned upon.
Not when my husband is gone from the world. God's decree is that as a widow, I am free to wed whom I wish. Better to wed than to burn is what they say. Besides, why else would God have fitted us with these instruments if not to use them?
Well, the opinion of our pious Marjorie would differ sharply, I'm sure.
I don't know if the same can be said for her husband.
She claims to have been visited by God in a dream, instructing her to a life of chastity.
After birthing 14 children.
That seems a very noble choice. I do not see a reason why you ladies couldn't...
Oh, by the power of my constellation, I could not withhold my chamber of Venus from a good fellow.
I sense a sermon coming on.
I do not intend to lecture you. We men of God are bound to share our knowledge, and we have answers for everything. In fact, there are even orders of penance for a woman who has tasted her husband's semen in order to greater inflame his love for her. There are even instructions for women who catch a live fish and insert it into their vagina, keeping it in there until it dies, then serving the fish to their husbands to eat, all to make their husbands love them more.
Oh, really? What else will men accuse us women of doing next? They say that we are endangering our chastity if we make ourselves look nice and wear expensive clothing. They say that just as a worm harms a tree, so does a wife destroy her husband. Only what possesses them to grouch and groan as they do? Is it from this alone?
Oh, do not act shy now, Alison. You have been a most entertaining hostess.
Indeed. Allow me to show you some of my gratitude with some entertainment of my own. A mind teaser.
Ah, wonderful idea, darling.
I'm not so good at these.
Have a listen then.
A curious thing hangs by a man's thigh, under the lap of its lord. In its front it is pierced, it is stiff and hard, it has a good position. When the man lifts his own garment above his knee, he intends to greet with the head of his hanging object that familiar hole, which is the same length, and which he has often filled before.
Good heavens!
Oh, I reckon I know what the answer is.
A key!
How delightful, Cicely! Have you any more?
Yes, I tell you, I have heard of something that grows in a corner, swelling and standing up, lifting up its own covering. Upon that boneless thing, a proud-minded woman gripped with her hand, and with her garment, a lord's daughter covered the swollen thing. It is dough!
Oh,
Who is responsible for these lecherous riddles? He who amuses himself with libidinous imagination shall do penance until the imagination is overcome.
We'll have to track him down another night, Father.
Oh, Beatrice, Holden ought to feast his ears on your little ditty. You know, the one about the rooster.
if you insist. I have a noble cock who crows for me at daybreak.
No, I can take no more of this.
Oh.
See you in church, Father.
Well, that was a wonderful scene switch. And now we're going to welcome Tia Christofferson, the playwright of Mythical Creatures. Hi, Tia.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Tell us about yourself. What have you been up to lately? What's your artistic background?
Well, aside from just staying at home all the time like everyone else, I have been working on this play. I've been doing a couple other projects from my house and working on my Master of Fine Arts at U of C.
Ooh, tell me more about the other projects you're working on.
One of the most recent ones I did was a micro play. It's called just like a 1-minute play that Downstage Theater did. It was a series called Tales from the Student Mind, and I thought it would be a good idea to put myself in the perspective of a number of vibrators and see what that would be like, having conversations with them after the death of one of their own. So,
That
yeah.
sounds incredible. I love it already. Do you have a history with Ignite, or is this your first year?
I was in Ignite last year as well. I wrote a play called Shellfish Eucharist and directed it as an audio play, and it was a lot of fun too.
Cool. How do you feel about like all of this theater being completely digital now? Like, What's that been like and the transition through that?
It's strange because I haven't actually ever done theater outside of the pandemic. Like I kind of started right after the pandemic hit. So it's been interesting. I think one of the great things about it is that it's more accessible to more people. Um, like this festival, for example, like friends and family who are not just located in Calgary can watch, which I think is great. But I'm also really excited to be around other people and hopefully hear some laughter in person.
Yeah, totally. So what's your artistic background if you don't necessarily come from theater?
Yeah, I've always been passionate about writing from a really young age. I was like writing detective stories, starring a fish who like got a lung transplant and then solved mysteries. And then I went to school and I got my English undergraduate degree, and from then on I was mostly writing fiction. But then I was like, I think that I want to be writing plays more than anything. So then I went to theater school for my grad program. Yeah, and it's been really fun. It's a nice change because it's a lot more collaborative than just like writing fiction is very solitary. So I love like hearing from other people and working with other folks in the community.
Yeah, I totally get that. Tell us about this project. Like, what was the writing process like? What sort of inspired you to start here?
So if you didn't, I mean, if you can't tell from the script, I'm obsessed with medieval literature. um, and I got into that in my undergrad degree as well. And now in my master's, I'm trying to combine like theater and medieval studies. And one of the main, I think, myths sort of perpetuated by like Game of Thrones and other like pop culture depictions is just that gender and sexuality were like extremely homogenous in the Middle Ages. And like far right people like to use that as a kind of argument, which is that like, oh yeah, trans people didn't exist until like yesterday, and everyone was like cisgender and heterosexual. And so like, let's go back to those times. But that time just never existed. Like the texts that I base the script off kind of prove that there was that women had sexual agency, that they weren't just, you know, completely passive subjects, that trans people existed. Yeah, and that they were just having a good time. I mean, probably not, but I'd like to think they were having some good times.
That's super cool. Yeah, how do I phrase this? How has it been just like exploring sexuality and these sort of like super left-wing topics, especially in a place like Calgary, where it's very
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, especially like Alberta is very, very conservative. And I feel like a lot of the arguments that like um, the whole Capitol Hill thing that happened a few months ago, like there was people dressed as Vikings and stuff, because it's like they're trying to like reclaim this past that didn't exist. And I feel like there's a lot of that similar type of rhetoric in Alberta. Um, so it's kind of interesting because it's like, you know, when you're working with other theater people or like collaborating on a project like this, it feels like you're in a vacuum, and it kind of lets you imagine like a more inclusive, accepting world, and then you like go out onto the street and it's like, oh, there's still a lot of like transphobic, homophobic, racist nonsense happening all the time. So um yeah, with the script I hope to just like challenge those ideologies, even if it's just a tiny bit. And yeah, hopefully I can do more of that in the future.
That's super cool. I like the phrasing of like they want to go back to a time that didn't exist. Like that totally just makes sense.
Yeah, it's just like a whole mythology. How do you say that word?
Myth.
It's making a myth.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Yeah. Cool. Do you have any like dreams and aspirations of like a project that would be like one day, if everything possible could actually happen and everything impossible could also happen? Like, what's your dream project?
That's a really good question. I probably like my biggest artistic dream right now is just to do like a full blown huge production. Like there's no budget even. It's just like the money's being thrown at me and it's just like a whole just like a very queer trans interpretation of like Middle English texts. Like if I could do like a 2-hour thing, even collaborate with a musician, make it a musical, like I just think that there could be it would be so much fun, especially because like music in the Middle Ages is like, I mean, it's like now it was a huge part of culture and life. So I think that putting more of like a queer focus on that would be really exciting.
Yeah, totally. That sounds so exciting, and it's just an idea. Yeah, is there any any moments in this project that have been kind of like difficult to work through, or just kind of like if you had any like doubts working on this project and like how you got through that and around it?
Yeah, definitely. I started working on the script actually like in a class, and it was very like academic in its origin because I was pulling from a lot of like scholarship and then looking at these primary sources and trying to pull everything together. And I was worried that it might not translate if you don't have like the background of like reading medieval texts, which I think like most people don't do that in their spare time because like why would you? So I was a little bit worried about that, but like working with this team helped me sort of, I think, go in the right direction and cut out some of the stuff that wasn't working. And they gave me a lot of insight into the characters that I didn't have before. And so that was really helpful in um, sort of easing my worries and seeing the characters come to life.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. How do you feel about like the process of turning it from a script and an idea into something that you can show at Ignite and like show an audience? And how's that process been?
It's really exciting, especially like I think that the most thrilling thing is writing something down and then having like being able to hear it from other people. That's just my favorite thing because it's like when you're writing it, you're like the middle of the night, like, oh, this is such a good idea. And then you like wake up in a cold sweat, like, what was I thinking? So actually hearing it from other people sort of like gets me out of my head and allows me to really experience it. And that is like it's been one of the greatest things about working with Ignite. And then also the director Lizzie, like all of the choices that they made with the script and for the A/B versions, those are just things that I never would have even considered or thought of. And so seeing those like two very different versions was really exciting, and it's really awesome to see other people's creativity going into the piece.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We're out of time. Are there any last words you have before we go?
Just thanks to Ignite and to the cast, director, and everyone watching.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tia. We're excited to see the podcast version of Mythical Creatures later this summer and future work from you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Now we'll be interviewing Sarah Kurtz, Ignite's dance curator, to find out more about what our dance program will look like this year. Sarah Kurtz will be directing her project entitled Death, a Rebirth. She'll be working with various dancers and actors to put on this project.
So, hi, Sarah.
Hi.
It's pretty exciting for me to have you in the Ignite Festival this year with your project, particularly in this strangest of all years. trying to figure out how to program dance in a interesting way that sort of rewards the medium, but also continues a performance aspect versus a filmmaking aspect. I think that's been a real challenge. And so yeah, thank you for rising to that. But before we even really get into the project, yeah, I'd just love to hear your experiences with Ignite, and maybe like if there's any part of that that you've moved on since then that you kind of brought with you forward.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be part of Ignite again. As Jason mentioned, I was a dancer a few years ago. I don't remember, 4 or 5. I auditioned for a group piece and I was accepted, and we did a really fun piece that year in a living room about a party. It was great. It was so much fun, and it was really lovely being part of Ignite too, because then we got to watch the other pieces being developed, and we all sort of like collaborated on the development of everyone's work. And it was just a really fun environment with a lot of, my peers. Obviously, that was back in person. So this year, we've decided to do something totally different. All the pieces will be solos due to COVID restrictions and just logistics and all of that. And yeah, we're going to film it instead of doing it live, but still trying to cultivate that idea of community and collective growth, and focusing on emerging artists.
Yeah, one of the things I was really impressed by was how you've been so willing to take in a wide variety of folks, because not everybody in the program this year comes from a strictly dance background. So I think that's been really interesting. Have you found anything neat about how these different types of people are interacting with your prompts and your conversations with them?
Yeah, we're still in the early phases, but everyone's super excited about my theme. So I had created a piece 2 years ago with the title Death. And this was an Ariel Silks act, so it was circus. But more, I was creating something more in line of theater. Dance performance is my background, as opposed to circus. And so anyway, I was really excited to submit it to Ignite this year to try and get it on stage, because it died before it was allowed to be born. But this year, when I submitted the application, I said I wanted it to be about rebirth, not just about death. And especially as our collective is going through so many changes with the closures and pandemic, I want to inspire some hope. With every death, there is a rebirth. And what do you want to be reborn? So all of the artists are working with it and taking it different ways. Everyone has their own personal experience with what it means to have lost something, or part of their identity, or part of their social structure. And so everyone's, creating in a different way. So we have some dancers, we have some aerialists, we have some sort of physical movement, or sort of circus performance. So it's a wide array of how people are interacting with the work.
Ah, that's really neat. I mean, this is when the application came in, this is what fascinated us most of all, because I think, like, especially in a pandemic, but also especially, fingers crossed, as we are mostly through a pandemic, that there has been like the death and rebirth seems particularly fitting as we're on our way through the pandemic, I think. And there's a sense of like, what are we being born into? What's this new situation going to be like? And because it won't be like it was before, I don't think.
Exactly. There's never any going back. Like, everything's always in constant change, and there is no returning to the way the past was. We're always recreating something new. And I think to also invite people to think about, what do you want? Like, as opposed to just letting it happen and seeing what happens, like, what do you want to make of it? What do you want to create? Now that you have the opportunity to, like, what was working, what wasn't working, what can you make better for yourself?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think that's such a positive, forward-looking prompt, I think, which is it was so exciting to see it. To get into just a bit of the process, and I know it's early stages, so maybe this is more speculative, but so we're hoping to film this in person when it's safe enough to do so. But in the meantime, you are working with people individually. What is it to give a a movement note to someone when you've only got the camera as your reference point versus being able to move around in the same space?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit curious because I'm watching this three-dimensional aspect on a two-dimensional screen. So there's some things I'm losing in their creation. But I think it also offers maybe more specific prompts of like, hey, what is your choice in this? Because I can't see maybe the full aspect. So I have to ask more questions, more layered questions, and get them to think about it a little bit more as well. If it isn't coming across, like, what can they do differently? It's definitely different. And then what, like, we're doing all of our work over Zoom and with video. So it's nice having the back and forth, but definitely different than being in person and feeling it differently.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting. The note that, like, because there's something you can't see, you get very specific with the note, and clarity becomes really important. Something that maybe would be more obvious but less clear in person, you get really clear about when you only have one way to see it. That's interesting. What else was I going to mention? So I know you mentioned that it was initially an aerial idea, and we do, like, there are some aerial artists that are going to be involved, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. Again, we're going to be in a space where we can show them, but that seems like it's particularly hard to give notes when they're hanging in space. Have you found any interesting challenges with, like, specifically engaging on those kinds of things?
I mean, I suppose, like, from my personal work, I always had to film myself to see what I was doing.
I guess that's true.
Because it's not like in dance where you sometimes you can use a mirror and watch what you're doing, but when you're up in the air and upside down and all that, you can't look in a mirror. It'll just make it more confusing. So I'm used to watching myself in a two-dimensional way to give myself, notes and feedback. So for me, I mean, I guess I'm already used to it with the other aerialists, but depending on what way they're spinning, sometimes I'll miss half of the move, or and that's part of the magic too. Even in a live performance, sometimes your spin is just different on different days. So you just have to also be aware of, like, where the camera is or the audience to wait to do that move on the right angle.
Yeah, there's a kind of momentum that you have to be aware of, I suppose.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. What else would I think I was going to? I think that's about all the questions I had. Is there anything that you maybe want to leave the audience with to get them excited?
I mean, I'm just excited about the theme, really, death
Yeah.
and rebirth, and how everyone interprets it, and inviting hope, but also making space for grieving. We have all lost something in the last year and a half, and allowing space for that and connecting through art, I think, is one of the ways that we can, because grief is something that our culture doesn't really know how to do. And I think allowing that to express itself through art, whether it's that the artists themselves, like, being able to emote it and like physically go through whatever they haven't been able to grieve, but then also for the audience to be able to see that and go through it themselves, but then have this idea of, okay, what's next? Like, what's going to come out of it? And that just inspires me so much. And I really hope people come and watch and can engage with the work with the way that feels good for them, and hopefully will invite some questions and curiosity as well.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for taking us through that process of both grief and eventual joy. I think we'll wrap it up there, but thanks very much for your time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Fantastic. You can watch Death, a Rebirth later this summer by finding it on sagetheater.com. Finally, our final show for the night is Lather, Rinse, Repeat Tales from the Echo Chamber by local theater group Baroque by the Dozen. There will be more episodes played throughout the festival, so make sure to tune in over the next 3 days to catch every single one. This episode is entitled Who's Afraid of Taylor Swift? There is, content warning. There's mention of death, car crashes, and conspiracy theories, and it's meant to be satirical, so don't get too hung up in the creepiness of it. Anyway, enjoy the show.
Now I know you got bad blood. You know you used to be mad love. Take a look at what you've done. Maybe now you got bad blood. Hey! Hey Swifties! It's me, Maddie, with another video. I was gonna do another makeup tutorial for you guys, but instead, I have some terrible news for you. I took it upon myself to fill you in. If you haven't grabbed a Kleenex yet, you might want to do that now. Turns out, our beloved Taylor Swift is a murderer! Now, I know what you must be thinking. Maddie, you've gone crazy. Taylor is so cool. She's so sweet. She would never. Okay, but what if it wasn't on purpose? What if it was a total accident? They're just driving along in their car. Maybe it's even dark out. They look away for just a second and wham! Someone's dead. It's no one's fault, really, but they're scared. They've never killed anyone before, obviously, so they don't know what to do. So, naturally, they cover it up. They let the guilt eat them alive. Well, Maddie, how can you be so sure she did something bad? Well, easy. Because of this. I know, because she's been telling us since 2014. When Taylor and Harry Styles broke up in 2013, she started writing songs about him, right? That's pretty much what her entire 1989 album is about. So why is so much of it about cars and driving badly? In the song Style, Taylor says, midnight, you come and pick me up, no headlights. Long drive could end in burning flames or paradise? Which is totally weird, right? Like, whoever must be driving, Harry, doesn't seem to be a very good driver. Especially when you add the lyrics, he can't keep his wild eyes on the road. Even I know you're supposed to watch the road when you drive, and I failed my learners twice. Well, Maddie, one song with a car in it doesn't mean anything. Okay, sure, except it's not just one song. In the song Out of the Woods, Taylor says, remember when you hit the brakes too soon? 20 stitches in a hospital room? 20 stitches, huh? That reminds me of something. Oh, right! It reminds me of this. 20 stitches in a hospital room? Definitely not a coincidence, and definitely not a snowmobile accident like they say it is. The point is that we didn't find out about it until 2014. 2014! When Taylor and Harry Styles went on vacation in January 2013 to the Virgin Islands, they hit someone with their car. If we go back to the song Style, Taylor says, take me home, just take me home. They get it out of Dodge pretty quick, they go home, and they break up because of the trauma. In the song, so a year later, she asks in the song Out of the Woods, are we out of the woods yet? Are we in the clear yet? Like, oh my God, how did we not see this before? Like Taylor even said herself, there's some pretty big things that we don't know about her. I'd say this is pretty big. And there's more. The song, I Know Places. I know places we can't be found. They'll be chasing their tails trying to track us down, 'cause I know places we can hide. Wildest dreams. Nothing lasts forever, but this, it's gonna take me down. Look, Swifties, you know I love Taylor. I have since the Red album. But guys, it's really hard to stand someone who's a murderer, and I can't ignore this kind of evidence. I never thought I would have to make this video, but as her fans, we deserve to know the truth. She can't pull the wool over our eyes anymore. And Taylor, if you ever watch this, I have a message for you too. You can't shake this one off. You're not out of the woods because you've got blood on your hands. Bad blood. You did something bad. Now look what you made me do. And with that, I'm signing off. This was Maddie, former Swiftie, ex-fan. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.
Okay, well, I didn't take my own advice and not get sucked into it because this makes so much sense. But I also kind of buy into every single conspiracy theory I ever hear. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for another scene switch reading, as well as more interviews, more monologues from Baroque by the Dozen. We will also be welcoming our other host for the festival, local drag performer and producer, Devery Bess. And if you can, please donate, because it's good to support local artists, it's good to support local theater groups, and there is a matching program where every dollar that's donated is matched twice. So if you donate $1, you are matched $2, so it ends up being $3 donated. And that sounds like a pretty good deal to me. You can support people, which is good. And then you won't have bad blood on your hands. It all connects. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.
It'd been so long, I had forgotten that the war is still on. I couldn't see what I was standing on. Now a landmine's trigger set to go off. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't know, since we went through this before. Bright, sharp edge, I'm digging shrapnel from my tender chest. I set the metal on the window ledge, so the sun glints off the twisted mess. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't know, since we went through this before. Change 'cause look at this big mess. You say